Hi, good morning. Thank you very much, Richard, for the introduction. Thank you very much, everybody, for having me here this morning. I must have, again, pissed off Richard because I noticed he's put me after a night of the Danish court and before lunch. So I guess I get the challenging spot and a hard act to follow. I think Richard gave you a little background about my interaction with the BPO industry as well as here in the Philippines. I guess what I hope to provide with you today is maybe a little bit of perspective, both in terms of some of the knowledge processing and some of the high-value services that we've developed in our global business services network, as well as, since my new role is that of overseeing our insurance arm, maybe also a perspective from the customer and what we expect from the customer perspective to get when we talk about high-value servicing. Because I think we all know that efficiency, cost savings, that's table stakes games now. If you can't provide efficiencies and cost savings, then you really don't have a place in the room here. But it's much more about where do we go from here, and how do we connect more with our businesses, with our customers, and with our clients from the services we're providing in an offshore environment. So maybe just a little background to put my talk in context. Just a little background about AIG as well as our shared services network here. So AIG is a global insurance provider, property and casualty insurance, as well as life and retirement services in our North America marketplace. We have about $65 billion in annual revenue, operating in about 100 countries around the world. Here in the Philippines, we have a slightly more focused approach. The majority of our business is focused on commercial clients, companies, as well as their employees and their customers. So we have a few niche consumer products, but the vast majority of what we focus on here and our core competency is on our commercial business partners. We have about 4 key industry focus areas where we really see growth and we are really specialized in for the next couple of years. One of those is BPO and the business process outsourcing industry. So it's no accident that AIG has chosen someone with a BPO industry background to also run the insurance arm here, because we're actually looking to develop closer and tighter ties and insights with the industries that we are focusing on. We have a couple of our broker partners here in the room here, and basically we want to work more closely with our brokers. That's our sales and marketing arm, but we need to have better insights in terms of what are the industry needs, what are the drivers, what are the risk trends that are affecting our industry in the BPO space, so we can be more effective at matching those needs as well as growing with them, as certainly the industry is growing here. In terms of our shared services network, our global business services platform, I think we operate what's probably now a fairly conventional sort of global network approach, where we have a variety of delivery centers around the world that are under common management within AIG. We have a couple maybe hybrid aspects of that model, and that some of our centers are true multi-geography, multi-services delivery centers, such as what we operate here in the Philippines, about almost 5,000 employees, both IT and BPO. We also have in-country service centers, so where there's a language-specific or cultural-specific requirement, we have our in-country service centers, and then we also have our single-service but multi-geography centers. These are our COEs, where we have maybe some certain functions that we want to deliver, but in a very specialized or focused way. And I'll talk about a couple of these in my presentation here. So again, maybe just to put this a little bit in context, this is not an insurance presentation, but maybe to give you a sense for how we look at the insurance value chain, and then how we connect our services providers in the BPO space with this insurance value chain. So at a very simple basis, maybe there's 5 steps in the value chain that we participate in from our shared services platform: marketing and sales, underwriting risks, policy servicing, adjudicating claims, and then our business support. Yes, hopefully you can read some of the details beneath this. I won't go through all the bullet points here, but maybe a couple highlights. So marketing and sales. Again, we primarily rely upon our brokers and our intermediaries as our marketing and sales arm to bring us in front of the client. But we have a very focused approach in terms of understanding and developing insights into emerging risks, and then bringing these to our clients, as well as developing products that can address these sort of needs as well. So whether you're underwriting a risk or writing a policy on an individual auto or on a geothermal power generation plant, these key steps are still the same, but obviously the type of risk and the steps that go into that sort of underwriting decision, as well as servicing, differs quite a bit. But on the marketing and sales point, really our focus is how do we understand better those emerging risks? How do we enhance our client knowledge, as well as educate our clients, our brokers, and our partners so we understand these trends are coming? So certainly in our industry here in the BPO space, there's a couple trends that have been addressed or maybe talked about today, which we have quite a keen focus on here. I think cyber risk is one of those. We've heard quite a bit about it, but now we're seeing it really come to, unfortunately, fruition in a number of different areas all across our delivery model. And then other areas like professional indemnity or liability, especially when you're supporting clients in maybe a U.S. or a European jurisdiction, which is much more litigious, much more sensitive to some of the client and data protection, as well as the type of high-value decisioning services that is increasingly being entrusted to our Philippine delivery centers and our staff. Maybe the other two aspects I would highlight here on the value chain. One is policy servicing. So we often think about an insurance policy as a commodity. You write the policy, you deliver it, you wait to see if there's a loss or a claim. But that's a commodity play. If you want to be a commodity player, yeah, you provide that sort of capacity. But our clients expect more and more, and our delivery centers deliver more and more the value-added services about how to take care of our clients to help them prevent a loss from occurring. And if a loss does occur, whether it's a natural disaster, whether it's an explosion or a fire or another type of risks, how do they mitigate or how do they recover very quickly from that loss, and how can we help them recover very quickly from that loss? And then the last point I'd make maybe on the value chain here is in terms of business support. You may not think of business support as being part of the value chain, but with an insurer being part of really the public good and certainly being very highly regulated, the needs for governance, transparency, as well as demonstrating financial stability is absolutely critical to our positioning both in the marketplace, with our clients, and with the communities that we serve. So we put that on our value chain as well. So in maybe the 10 minutes or so this morning, what I want to do is maybe highlight a couple real-world examples of knowledge processing and how we deliver that from our centers and what's the sort of value it creates for me as a customer running an insurance company or for our other insurance companies around the world that we service. So here's a couple of examples, kind of a laundry list of some of our KPO, our unstructured or knowledge-based, highly or maybe highly reliant upon decisioning, as well as maybe a vast majority of large number of permutations in terms of the decision flow that we might see in delivering these services. So our KPO delivery. And I'll highlight several here along this spectrum. So from the underwriting side, this is a little detailed graphic here, but just to give you a sense in terms of how we look at maybe the before picture of a traditional underwriter's job, and then the picture we see more and more as we participate or as we partner with our shared services platform. And I'd call your attention to maybe a couple numbers here. From an insurance standpoint perspective, probably the most valuable asset that I have in an insurance company is our underwriting skills, our underwriting talent, that technical knowledge. It's developed over many, many years of experience underwriting, experience in the market, relationships with our brokers, and relationships with our clients. So for every minute they spend in the office behind a desk, that's a minute lost in terms of opportunities for business growth or opportunities for better servicing of our intermediaries and our clients. So the first thing in terms of how we use our shared services is moving a lot of this work, it itself being very complex and sometimes very, very involved, but moving that into our shared services environment so we can get our underwriters who sit in the marketplaces out into that marketplace. So if you see in the top end on the left-hand side, submission preparation, which is or can be very, very complex when you're looking at maybe trade credit, a power risk, a multinational liability or casualty risk, but it takes up, in some cases, up to 40% of our underwriters' time. As we now move those high-value services into our global business service delivery centers, one of the quick gains we get is about a 25% decrease in the amount of time that our underwriters are spending behind the desk. And that translates to meaning 20% more time out in the marketplace, working with you, getting to know you and our clients, as well as our brokers, at a much more discreet and much more relevant level, so we can create bespoke solutions or customized terms and customized provisions within our policies to address a specific industry. So this is one example where I guess there's more of a partnership between our in-country underwriting or skilled resources and our global business service center. Here's another example, and this is taking from one of our COE centers. One of our COE centers we developed over the last couple of years provides engineering skill sets and what we call CAT modeling or catastrophe modeling. Put simply, the CAT modeling gives us a better and, again, a more discrete and detailed picture of the type of risk that we're looking at underwriting. So say, for example, this building here in the Marriott. This is, in a traditional sense, there might be 3 or 4 zones that are graded in terms of the risk from a windstorm, like a typhoon, flood, or other catastrophe perils. But if you look at just Manila, for example, just in this area here, you have some buildings that are built on reclaimed land, some that are closer to the bay than the others, some are closer to water sources, some a little further inland. The difference of maybe a couple blocks, especially if you're talking about reclaimed land, can mean a vast differential in terms of the risk, the exposure, or the potential damage from a catastrophe that affects the Philippines. And certainly we know that this is a very catastrophe-prone environment. So we rely upon our global business service centers to provide the engineering and the analytics to provide an enhanced decisioning package to our underwriters, better understanding what that risk is, the likelihood of a loss, and probably more important, when I stand in front of a client, the ability to go in front of our clients or our brokers and help advise our clients, here's how you can mitigate that risk, here's how you can avoid it, or here's how you can look at different location preferences where you'll have less exposure as you build out your center or expand your presence in a certain location. The other aspect of our analytics center is also on the claims side. Using Typhoon Haiyan, for example, a couple years ago, we all saw it coming. We saw the probable storm paths as that storm and others like it have approached the Philippines. But our engineering center now allows us to very quickly analyze all the risks that we've written, the types of exposure they have, as well as make probabilities in terms of models about the likelihood and types of damage that we're going to sustain, that our insureds are going to sustain, and now we can proactively redeploy resources, either claims adjusters or support staff, or advise our clients on steps that they can take to batten down the hatches so that they can minimize the loss from these sort of storms. So it's moving our insurance services from a reactive approach, both in underwriting as well as claims, to a much more proactive and client-facing approach where me as an insurer or my team, we can be out ahead of these risks to try to avoid them for the benefit of all. I'll hit maybe 2 more examples just to kind of wrap up. The other aspect, and this wasn't originally as expected or maybe as planned, but what we found with our global business service centers, things like our engineering as well as our underwriting, we're accumulating vast amounts of data and insights into our customers, both their underwriting as well as their loss and probabilities. So now what we're doing is using that data in a more structured way to actually circle back into our marketing cycle, help develop newer products, better products, understand the risk trends, the exposures, and then return back to the marketplace with better solutions for those new risks. So I think there were a couple presentations earlier that referenced big data, digitization of data, both structured and unstructured. This is one way that AIG is using big data now to help bring new solutions into the marketplace. And certainly things like cyber risk, we're seeing some very new trends, some unfortunately very alarming, but also things like liability, cross-border liability, serving global business partners or global customers, and then a variety of other risks as well, where we can use our business centers not just as a service center and not even just as a repository of data, but use the expertise of the people who see that data, who see those clients on a day-to-day basis to help raise the flag and say, hey, I think we see needs here that you can address in country or directly with your clients. And then maybe the last example I'll share with you today is maybe from a more contact center perspective. One of our services we provide from within our global business services is our travel assistance service. So if you buy a travel policy from AIG, if you lose your luggage, if your flight is canceled, you can call our number anywhere in the world, and the call will end up with one of our coordinators in a global business service center, and to advise you on how to file a claim and get it paid. But the travel assistance center, that's probably the majority of their calls, but that same individual on the line, the same coordinator, he or she can also get a call saying that I need a concierge type of service. I'm in a foreign country, I'm traveling here, maybe I'm doing some training or knowledge transfer with a client. It's an unfamiliar environment. I need a prescription filled. Where can I go to a pharmacy? How can I get this covered? And then it goes to the other extreme of the type of calls we get as well, which is I'm a traveler in Nepal, I'm on a bus, and my husband is short of breath, can't breathe, I think he's having a heart attack, what do I do? And these are real-world examples of calls that come in almost daily. I mean, not the last one, but they do come in, where our travel assistance center has to be ready for the whole gamut of calls. We don't have the time to segment that call from, oh, it's a heart attack, let me dial or press 3 and go to this other routing. We don't have the luxury of time there. It has to be answered second call every time. So this is the type of service that we provide from within our Global Business Service Center to all jurisdictions and all countries around the world, but it can range from one extreme to the other. So originally, that's how we set up the Travel Assistance Center, but what we found out was that sort of expertise, again, working with clients, working with those countries, working with the networks of providers that were required to service those type of calls or those type of needs, we could expand the services even further. So over the last 6 years, not only have we had this been a more traditional contact center environment, which we've gone upscale with, but now this is truly a crisis service center, a security service center, and an evacuation center. So we take all types of calls and all types of issues from around the world, and now we're even sending our experts from inside the center into foreign countries from our service centers to help advise and help actually manage some of the risks that we are servicing. These could be a security issue where we need to provide an evacuation service for clients in a country because of maybe a political risk, so real world like in Egypt or Libya. It could be a natural disaster like the earthquakes in Nepal or in Christchurch, or it could be even a terrorism incident, which unfortunately, like the Hong Kong tourist bus that was attacked here in Manila, these are all examples where we sent our teams on site from our service center to actually either help with evacuations, to help with providing security, to find medical assistance, to coordinate medical assistance, or even in some cases, unfortunately, to repatriate remains of those people who were killed in these sort of incidents, which can be very, very complex and very, very administratively difficult. So that kind of gives you, hopefully, a flavor of some of the types of high-end services, our KPO or high-value services that we're providing from our global business service centers, and maybe a little bit of flavor of how they've evolved over time. But I think the key point from me and from AIG is that we certainly get tremendous savings and efficiencies. Alec in the back has been responsible for generating those efficiencies for our business over the last 3 years here. We're very proud of that track record. But there's another half of the story which often isn't told, which is how does that become a business driver and a catalyst for business growth? And that's where the customer perspective comes in. So kind of in summary, I see our global business services, and particularly the KPO aspects of what we deliver, hitting really these 4 points. Being able to create the global scale in the local markets, all 100 local markets that AIG operates in. We can't afford to create 100 different service centers in those countries with high touch points in those countries, but through our service centers, both from the data as well as the customer interaction they have remotely, as well as freeing our underwriters to be the eyes and ears of AIG in those marketplaces, we can really create that local presence, but still have the power and the capability of a global scale. There's also the best-in-class service. Again, an aspect of scalability, but we don't have to develop this 100 times in 100 different locations. We can develop it in one or a few of our hubs and then deploy that around the world. And I think what's probably most exciting, again, from my perspective, is innovation in products and servicing. So the power of the data, the insights that we have from the non-structured interactions and the decisioning we have in our service centers and the expertise that develops over time with the staff that we have there can be used very directly then to reconnect with our clients in terms of new services, higher value services, or other aspects of maybe our products which we see needs for and that are growing. So one such example that may be relevant to us in the room here, if we talk about business interruption for a moment. Often from an insurer's perspective, we think about property cover and business interruption as, okay, if you want to protect your revenue stream, that may be covered in a property policy. But for many of us here, we don't own a large portfolio of assets. We don't own the buildings. We don't own the property. It's leased, or it's mostly the human capital, which is where most of our exposure comes. So if you have a major incident or there's a catastrophe here, a traditional property policy won't cover that sort of business interruption in terms of moving your staff from here to Cebu, or from this location to an onshore location, or transferring your work from your offshore center back onshore. These are all some maybe more minute aspects of business interruption and risks that we all face, but a traditional insurance policy isn't set up to understand those or respond to those. But from our service center and understanding the BPO industry, our model here, that's how we're using that to develop these sort of insights as well as new product extensions. And then the last aspect is risk mitigation. I've talked about catastrophe risk, which I think is fairly apparent to those of us here in the Philippines. But the other aspect of risk mitigation that we're very concerned with is the impact of changing business models upon our own business model, or changing aspects of technology, innovation, and particularly disruptive technologies, and how that's going to affect our business model. So our global business services, they give us the ability to more rapidly shift resources, capability, knowledge, technology, and even if needed, manpower to different marketplaces where we see either opportunities, or if we see dwindling opportunities or maybe changing opportunities, and which for us means maybe a smaller appetite for that sort of risk, then we can more rapidly shift to capture the opportunities and the changing nature of a global marketplace. So I think that concludes, my presentation today. Thank you very much for having me here today. Look forward to seeing you in the panel to come, and as well as outside during the lunch hour. Thank you.